welcome to this special interview on US-Tanzania bilateral relations with the acting US Ambassador in Tanzania, Andrew Lentz. My name is Yvonne Msemembo, and with me I have my colleague Lydia Igarabuza, the Chief Content Officer from East Africa TV and Radio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you,
It's good to have you with us, Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure. First of all, it's a pleasure to see you again. Of course, we engaged each other last year about this same time. And then, so that your viewers know, I got a full backroom tour of ITV Media, and it's quite exciting. It's an amazing operation, and again, thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you find what you saw from both?
Well, you know, I haven't done a lot of tours of media houses, so seeing how the newspapers are printed and created, the digital content, the blue screens, I mean, all this was new to me, but really impressive in what you've established. And I think the mission of your organization to really try and provide media and news and information and entertainment in different content, reaching different audiences where they are and engaging them, really that's impressive. And I can tell you it is so important for countries, mine included, to have vibrant private media like yours. It's really critical.
Okay, so I'd like to start off with my first question. Despite Tanzania returning to normalcy after the October 29 general election, which experienced unrest in some parts of the country, but fortunately things have sort of like gone back to normal for us in Tanzania. But despite that, when you look into the US Embassy website, you still get that Category 3 advisory alert.
Yeah.
Does this mean that the US considers Tanzania is still unsafe to visit right now?
Well, Yvonne, first of all, thank you, because that is an important question, and I get asked it a lot. Probably the best way for me to really answer that question is to give a little bit of background for you and for the viewers on what goes into those travel advisories and how we create them. First and foremost, the safety of American citizens who are traveling to Tanzania and who are resident in Tanzania. That's my top priority. It's the top priority of any chief of mission anywhere in the world. Tanzania is included in the United States. That's my top priority. A travel advisory like that, that's one of the tools that we have to be able to engage American citizens, to provide them the information that they need on security, the security of the country, the security of the location, so that they have the information they need to make informed decisions. And that's really what our whole travel system is based on, providing individuals, providing citizens with up-to-date information in real time so that they can make the decisions about their own security they need to make. Now, as you said, we raised our travel advisory to level 3 from level 2. And I think just for everyone's awareness, level 3 is not the highest level. Level 4 is the highest level. So we raised it from 2 to 3 right after the events of October 29, 2025, around the national elections. And that was a time, as you recall, when there was violence in the streets of many cities throughout the country. And we were receiving direct calls and reports from American citizens who were trapped inside hotel rooms, unsure if they could get out safely, stranded in airports, unable to leave. So it was important for us to raise it there, so that people considering coming to the country at that time had the information they needed. Now, you're right that those conditions are not here today. But there's a lot of other factors that go into the creation of a travel advisory. And those include things like if an American citizen comes to Tanzania, ends up being accused or suspected of committing a crime and ends up in a jail somewhere. Is the American embassy notified in a reasonable time according to the Vienna Convention? That's one of the factors that we need to see. Are we going to be notified on time? If that American citizen ends up in prison, are we able to go visit that person, have access to that American citizen to be able to check on their welfare? When an American citizen is enmeshed in a country's legal system, is there a reasonable expectation that the citizen will know the charges against him or her, and that there is going to be a transparent and predictable kind of rule of law approach to handling that case? So those are all the kinds of things that go into a travel advisory, so that we're making sure that we're really informing American citizens, dual citizens, everybody, they're American citizens, but just so your viewers realize that they have that information. Now, I engage constantly with your government to make sure that we are addressing the kinds of issues in the consular space that we need to. And our travel review, our travel advisory is always under constant review. So I hope we can get back to lowering it down. And again, the goal of lowering it is to make sure that we're supporting legitimate travel and exchanges to Tanzania, but also ensuring that I fulfill my number one priority, safety and security of American citizens.
Is there a time frame for this advisory?
The time frame, I mean, the important thing about the advisory, it's not, first of all, it's not a political tool, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that. We don't raise it because of unhappiness with the government, or we don't lower it because we're happy. It is a tool that is meant to be of service to American citizens traveling or resident here. It is something that generally takes time because it has to go through review in Washington. We have to review it. We have to look at the basket of issues that I just discussed. And so sometimes it takes time to get the data and the indicators to make sure that we're putting it at the right level. But as I said, it's under constant review. It is my priority not only to protect Americans, but also to make sure that we have a vibrant exchange, that American tourists can come here and feel safe and enjoy the beauty of Tanzania. That's all part of my priority, and so hopefully we'll get it down.
And the security advisor has also marked Mtwara as an area that is facing the threats of terrorism. What have you seen there that, you said that Mtwara is not a very safe place to visit right now? Yeah,
well, I mean, and you guys can, I'd love a debate on this if you've got different information, but I don't think it's a secret that, ISIS Mozambique is active on Tanzania's southern border, and that there have been instances in recent history of some of those terror groups coming across the border in Tanzania and conducting attacks here. I went down to Mtwara last year. I met with government officials there. I know that they are taking that threat on the south of Tanzania's border with Mozambique. They're taking it very seriously. They're taking steps to make sure that Tanzania is safe, that the border is safe, the communities there are safe. And so I think it's reasonable for me to take it seriously as well and know that as long as there's an active threat, terrorist threat, just on Tanzania's border with incidences of cross-border attacks in the not too distant future, that I think it's reasonable to then provide American citizens with that elevated level of risk to say, if you're going to go there, you need to know that terrorism is in the vicinity. And I think you also know, it's no secret, that Americans are frequent targets of terrorist attack. And of course, the history of the attack on our embassy in 1998 is very fresh in my mind, in the mind of my colleagues and of the department. And so I think we have to be conscious of that too, that Americans are oftentimes the target of terrorist attack. And so I think it's reasonable to keep that level high for now.
You've mentioned that there are a basket of issues that are happening within our relationship, bilateral trade and a general relationship, Tanzania and the US. Yeah. And I'm here to represent the voice of the youth. As I mentioned earlier, that our channel is for youth empowerment, and we try to get their concerns and interests across the border. There was closure or setbacks on some of the foundations that were supporting a lot of activities for Tanzanians with the relationship with the USAID funding in Tanzania. About 120, according to the www.workingforusaid website, that about 120 organizations were impacted by this. And I understand some of them were directly working across the board with youth and youth empowerment and livelihood issues. So this concerns us as a youth empowerment channel because many youth are finding ways to engage themselves. And I understand some of these organizations were also fundamental in critical issues like health. Like say, for instance, there were lots of organizations dealing with the methadone treatment, which is a concern for young people in terms of addiction and enterprises and incubation. So my question is, after that setback or closure of most of these organizations, what is the has the funding been restructured or consolidated or transformed into new mechanisms to ensure that these young people who were impacted by these closures are continuing to receive these services in those critical issues?
Yeah, no, thank you, and it's really important. I think, it's important to know why. Again, if I can step back and give a little bit of background, and then get back to the fundamental of your question. The closure of USAID was part of my government's intent to really structure the way that we engage with our partners overseas. And our vision for the future is to really move away from a relationship that is based on kind of I give to you, donor, recipient. That relationship achieved a ton, and I think you're right. I mean, we were able to empower and support numerous organizations that were doing incredibly good work. Yes. In the health sphere over the last, the accomplishments that we had were quite stunning and remarkable. That over the last 2 decades, through our assistance portfolio, we extended Tanzanian life expectancy by 15 years. That we were able to reduce HIV/AIDS mortality by 80%. That we almost drove malaria to elimination in Zanzibar. These are things that are quite fantastic, and we should be proud of those accomplishments. I think what we needed to look at, and this is where we are now, is how sustainable was that over time? That over those years, to achieve those results, it was billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money coming into Tanzania, in some cases propping up the health and education and other social services here in the country. And so I think, I hear quite clearly from the president and from other members of the government that I think it's her priority as part of Vision 2050 and is to move away from that old relationship where Tanzania is relying on the United States of America to give donor money to Tanzania. That what Tanzania wants, and frankly it's what the United States wants, is that we reset that relationship. That it moves away from that, and we're starting to move toward dynamic private sector engagement, where we're bringing in investment, we're bringing in our cutting edge technology, our innovation, our best companies into the country, and that through that we are starting to create an environment of growth that can benefit young people in new and exciting ways. The young people who are starting businesses, that they're going to see much more opportunity. That if we can drive, Tanzanian growth from what is now annually 6% or so, really it should be growing at 10, 13, 14% annually. So, our vision is let's get out of the aid assistance model. Let's shift it where we're more building a new and I think more sustainable and durable partnership centered around dynamic private sector growth that can really benefit Tanzanian people and our people in new and exciting ways. So that's where we're headed. And that's why we decided at that time to move away from USAID, shift remaining assistance over to the Department of State, and at the Tanzanian level, I'm responsible for that, for moving forward. And then building in a transition period, which we're now in, where we're continuing some essential funding, and I can explain that, give some details if you'd like, but in a transition period now, as we then hopefully get to a point where we can negotiate with the government a new foundation and a new partnership of what our future kind of assistance and investment and business relationship looks like.
Yes, that sounds great, but I'm thinking that what happened then, that me as a young person, if I was in this service, so it's just cut off for a minute and then I have to, what period of time do I have to wait? In particular, if it's a health service related, what period of time do I have to wait? So that's why I ask, are there structured mechanisms already in place, or what do we communicate?
Sure, I understand that. So let's focus on the health for a second. So when aid closed, so that was in July of last year, and shifted over to the Department of State, we were able to continue. We have been continuing through what we're calling a bridge plan, a bridge from the old to the new. Through this bridge plan, we've been continuing to fund life-saving medications for people with HIV/AIDS, the medications necessary to continue to combat malaria and TB and other diseases. So we've continued funding to keep keep millions of people on life-saving medication. Yeah. We've also continued funding to make sure that frontline health workers remain paid and able to be out in the front line and in communities throughout this country to do the important work that they're doing. So we've continued that. Now, the thing that I need, that's really an important message to get, and it's part of my conversations with the government, that bridge funding is only going to last for a couple more months. And at some points in the not too distant future, it's going to expire. What we hope that we can do very soon is negotiate with the government of Tanzania a multi-year memorandum of understanding that can put in place the foundation of this new health partnership. And what we hope to do is, let's say it's a 5-year memorandum of understanding, is that the United States government would be able to front load a significant amount of funds. We're looking at perhaps $1 billion, more than $1 billion. That we'd be able to front load a good amount of funds to keep services going while we work with the government on putting in place new systems that when U.S. funding begins to drop over a 5-year period, national funding begins to increase over that same period. And at the same time, private sector investment. And the Pfizers, the Abbotts, the big cutting edge pharmaceutical companies that want to do business here. They want to build manufacturing plants here. They want to do clinical trials that are going to benefit the Tanzanian people. That their ability to do business and invest in Tanzania's health sector increases over that same period. So at the end of 5 years, Tanzania has the kind of stable, durable, self-supportive system in place that it doesn't matter if the United States, Europe, China, or anybody is here, Tanzania can do it to provide great services for the Tanzanian people, but also partner with us, the United States of America, on a more equal footing to be able to combat threats to global health security. So that's our vision. But I think the important thing I'm just going to stress, we're at a critical point now where this bridge funding is about to expire. And what we're looking for is concrete evidence from the government of Tanzania that they are committed to resetting our relationship, resetting our bilateral relationship in critical areas across the board around values of shared prosperity and security. So we're engaging right now, working on what that looks like and trying to make sure that that concrete evidence is given. And once we see that, then we are excited and our hand is wide open to jump right into negotiating this health MOU to set in place the foundation of what I just described.
Okay. And for millions of young people in Tanzania, the youth are the engine of this country, 18 to 35.
Yeah.
And they are thinking, what do these conversations have to do with me? How can I benefit? And the beneficial factor is youth employment.
Yeah.
We have thousands of young people who are unemployed, and they are looking at ways of how these bilateral relations and trade investments from the U.S. in Tanzania can benefit them directly. Yeah. Can they obtain those jobs?
Sure.
Can they have a sustainable partnership with the investments that are coming in from the United States?
Sure.
So, and it's also part of our Vision 2050,
right,
which also focuses on industrialization and youth employment.
Right.
So my question now becomes, how are the trade and investment conversations creating actual jobs for young Tanzanians, and how is that in the framework? What no guarantee, but what indicators are there already that young person in Tanzania is going to be able to work in the country, is going to be able to benefit from these relations?
The relationship that we want to establish with Tanzania is one of fairness, reciprocity, and mutual benefit. That's what we want. And so when you see, I know there's been newspaper coverage of some of my conversations with the government about, let's finalize the LNG deal, or let's, partner together in getting some of the critical minerals, mines started and processing going on in country. And all of that is to the end of saying, we know that your vision 2050 and your desire is to create opportunities for employment, to increase investment, increase growth, to drive Tanzania from a lower middle income country to an upper middle income country by 2050. That's your goal. Well, our goal and our efforts are really absolutely in line with what the government wants to do. That we're saying that the United States, our private sector, as I said before, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I mean, we've got the best technology. We've got the greatest innovation. We've got the most widely known brands. And a lot of these companies would love to come into Tanzania and be part of this story of growth and dynamism. And what they keep bumping up against is barriers to entry. Whether it's predatory tax policy, whether it is just delays in getting deals done, that these kinds of things are impeding the entry into the market of American companies and investors. And sometimes even those companies that are here from America often feel that they're not able to play on a level playing field as they see some other companies from different places being able to seem to get deals quite quickly. So, I mean, I think, so my answer to you and my statement to the young people is, we're ready to be a part of the Tanzanian story in creating the kind of job opportunities, the kind of growth that are going to create virtuous cycles here in Tanzania that are directly answering what youth want. And that's part of our review, our bilateral review with the government, is really looking at some of these obstacles. How can we overcome them and really unleash the true potential of what we can do together? And we want to see concrete evidence that the government is ready to work with us on doing that. So anyway, I feel like, my short message to young people is keep hustling, keep working, keep growing your businesses. We are ready to bring our innovation, technology, and brands to the table. And I think that together, if we can kind of start driving down those barriers, that there's going to be a dynamism that creates the job opportunities you're talking about.
Right. Current projects are underway right now, and negotiations are the $42 billion LNG project.
Yeah.
You have the $942 million Tembo nickel project,
yeah,
as well as the $300 million Mahenge graphite project. Are you saying that these projects right now are also facing obstacles?
I think, I think the LNG story is well known in that that's a deal that's been going on and being negotiated for somewhat like 13 years. So I think the question is just why? What's taking so long? And I think there are legitimate reasons for that. Obviously, Tanzania needs to get the deal that it needs to get. The companies also need to protect their interests. But I think that one is time to bring it to a close. The president said she wants to. It is as you said, $42 billion. It's half the current GDP of Tanzania. Closing that deal creates an incredible opportunity. You're going to all of a sudden see, once that deal gets signed, additional companies coming into the market, the logistics companies, the data engineering everybody is going to come in that may not have immediate job, again, to your youth. It's going to take a little bit of time for all of that to create, but the best time to start that process is right now. So I think, it's taken a long time to get it done. It feels like there's political will to finalize that deal now, and so I really hope, and it's why I'm so invested in trying to get it done, that I hope that we can finally push it across the finish line and really start doing the great work and unleashing the economic potential that it can. On those other projects that you mentioned, they are subject to intense negotiation. I hope, again, that we can get through those, and that the reason that I focus on those specific projects, though, is less about those projects in specific and more about what they represent. and what they can unleash. So, if you finalize the Tembo nickel and the Mahenge graphite, that is an opportunity for Tanzania to prove to the world that they are a core partner in what is really critically becoming more and more a priority, I think, for everybody, which is we've got to diversify critical mineral supply chains. That right now, and this is no secret, right now there is an essential monopoly on a lot of the critical mineral flows, a lot of the processing of those critical minerals, and a lot of the components of the supply chain. Now, monopolies are never good, and they're not good for Tanzania's interests. If Tanzania wants to be in a position where it's controlling its natural resources, where it's able to set prices that make sense for the people of Tanzania for those goods, that it wants to be able to process in country the wealth of the country, then a diversified supply chain, a diversified market, where there are many buyers and sellers, where there are many opportunities to partner with different equity investors and different end users and off-takers, that is in Tanzania's interest. And in fact, it's also in the interest of the United States of America. So I think, it's finalizing deals like that all of a sudden, it's like Tanzania raising its hand and saying, hey, equity investors everywhere, partners everywhere, we get the problem and we're ready to be part of the solution to help everybody diversify these supply chains. So it's more about what it signifies, and that's why it's so important to get these deals done. And I truly believe then it can unleash a lot of potential and dynamism.
What's delaying it?
I think it's a lot of factors, and I want to be careful. Certainly, I don't want to, begin to talk about private negotiations that are very important. And so I don't think I want to get into it, Yvonne, if you don't mind. But I think that the important thing is just what I am seeing now, and it's been a change, I would say, even since I became the acting ambassador, is that there's an increasing political will to get this stuff done on the part of the Tanzania and on the part of the investors. There's real commitment on the part of the investors and the companies to try and engage in good faith and get these deals done. And I'm seeing increasingly a real political will on the part of the government here to get them done too. So that makes me hopeful, that I'm optimistic. I hope we can have good news soon.
The U.S. government has extended the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, for another year until December 31st. But this is a very short period, for beneficiary countries to get anything out of this. But why this, short reprieve, though?
I hope that we see the reauthorization of AGOA as a good news story. I mean, first and foremost, I think that should indicate to the Tanzanian government, to the Tanzanian people, to exporters throughout Tanzania, that the United States is prioritizing trade with Africa. So I think that, first of all, is an important story that I hope everybody realizes. Now, it's also important, I think, for us to realize that AGOA is not the end goal. Like, just having AGOA isn't really the goal. It's a tool for us to achieve what I think we really want, certainly what the United States wants, and I think the government of Tanzania, the people of Tanzania want. And that is a fair, reciprocal, and mutually beneficial trade and investment relationship. I think that's what we want. So AGOA is a tool to get there. Now, what I hope, and I think the things that we really need to be asking questions about and focusing on, is how do we use this year to the maximum effect to be able to get us closer to achieving that goal. I think it's an unfortunate fact that over the 25 years or so of AGOA's life cycle, Tanzania didn't really maximize its use of that opportunity. That when you look at the trade figures, the amount of exports going to the United States of America was just too low. And so I really hope that the government, in close cooperation with exporters, with the private sector, take a hard look at why that is. What prohibited Tanzania from taking advantage of duty-free access to the U.S. market? And then, once you've done that analysis and assessment, start making the system changes, start dropping the barriers to SMEs growing and scaling. I mean, businesses here have got to be, the U.S. market is not an easy market to succeed in. So businesses here have got to be able to scale. They've got to be able to attract the investment they need to build up their production facilities and make sure they're able to meet U.S. quality regulations and guidelines, etc. So what's blocking that? What's prohibiting, perhaps, companies from being able to succeed? And I think the flip side of that is, again, reciprocal, fair, mutually beneficial. And you see the U.S. Trade Representative said this in his comments at the reauthorization of AGOA, that we want to make sure then that our partners to whom we are offering duty-free access, that they are likewise giving to our companies and our investors the same kind of opportunity to compete at a level playing field. That there is then, I hope, during this year, a really hard look by the government, and I'm so ready to work with the government to try and identify these and bring them down. But what are the obstacles to U.S. trade and investment? What are the obstacles to U.S. goods coming here? And so I think if we take full advantage of this year and really look at both sides of the coin and make sure that we are driving ourselves toward that goal, then I think we can do great things. I think AGOA is going to be on a much more stable footing, and we're going to be able to even go beyond AGOA and get to a place where it's really dynamic and beneficial for both of our peoples.
We are not just exchanging skills, but creating a long-term opportunity for development of those skills.
Yeah.
So the partnerships or the exchange programs or the trainings are for a long term, so that we actually find time, not find time, but have the capacity to develop in a long-term basis, so that we can add on to, especially in the area of value chain, we can add on to the processes that need us to create those success stories
right.
for programs like the AGOA Access.
Yeah.
So therefore, it doesn't become a short-term investment. It doesn't become, why are you not succeeding
right.
over the last 25
right.
years? But success would need a lot of technical capability and investment in those skills. So are the relationship conversations right now also giving strength and opportunity for skills investment, so that we can, not just short-term training programs, but
right.
long-term training programs, so that those skills can remain in the country and actually add on to what we need to do to create those success stories?
Absolutely. And I mean, that is critical, and that is one of the things that makes me very proud to be a representative of the United States of America and our people and our educational institutions and our companies. There are so many, this is one of the things that the U.S. private sector does very well. When it comes into a market, it is known that those companies invest in their workforce, that they invest in the communities around either a mine or a factory or whatever they're producing. That they are investing in local communities, they're investing in human capital, they're investing for the long term. That's one of the things we do very well. And you can see it around the world. Now in Tanzania, there are examples of that. And there are also, we've got our institutions of higher education actively engaging with your institutions, universities, but also laboratories and other institutions throughout the country. There are strong partnerships there where we are sharing expertise. I love to tell the story because it really stuck on my head. When I went up to the Moshi area and visited KCMC, Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center, up in that area. And what I got to see there was, first of all, Duke University has a relationship there. And there are Tanzanian doctors, Tanzanian researchers who are doing cutting-edge clinical trials that are helping not just people in Tanzania, but they're helping the world. They are adding to the body of global knowledge of how do you fight disease, fight depression, get over alcohol dependence. I mean, all sorts of things they're doing in partnership with one of America's greatest educational institutions. That is skill building and technical exchange and skill exchange at its very best in practice. And you know what I would love to see is that we find a way to replicate that and we keep replicating it. And that, my team laughs at me, I think, because it sounds so pie in the sky. But I would love to see, and KCMC is not the only example. Kigomboto is another one. That research center is doing amazing work. The Nelson Mandela Center, MUHAS. You've got institutions down in different part in Beja that is just doing great things. So if we could build on that foundation, I could see creating tech, bio, med, tech corridors that build on the human capital here, that take advantage of these educational and skill exchanges, that become magnets for foreign investment, and that create the kind of virtuous cycles that could that could help Tanzania leapfrog and drive the kind of growth that's necessary for Vision 2050. That's a vision, but I gotta say, it's gonna take political will, it's gonna take hard work, it's gonna take a serious look at what obstacles there are in the system that prevent investors from coming into this market. So I'm optimistic. I wanna pin my vision way out there and think, what can we achieve that's big and exciting? But in order to get there, we're gonna have to do the hard, dirty, sweaty work of just getting through and overcoming those obstacles. And that's where we are right now.
You talked about the exchange programs of development of human resources as well. But right now, Tanzania is among countries that have been affected by the impartial visa restrictions. So won't this affect that?
Yes, you're right. Tanzania is one of those countries that has been affected by these partial visa bans. And in Tanzania, that is covering most categories of the non-immigrant visa and also immigrant visas. And, they're affected on this as, frankly, the United States is really undergoing our own tough work to try and strengthen our border security, strengthen national security, and really tighten up immigration controls. So that's the work we're doing right now, and it is having this effect. That part of that is really trying to get a handle on and control some of the immigration flows. And I think, again, it's important to go back before I answer your direct question, but to go back and give the viewers just a little bit of an understanding of why we're doing this. The United States of America historically has been one of the most open countries to immigration in the world. And people were coming on legitimate reasons to the United States for study, to get medical treatment, for tourism reasons, to visit their families, to go to school. The problem is that some of those people, not all of them, but some of those people, a significant number of the people, when you begin to look at the whole numbers, including Tanzanians, overstayed their visas and ended up remaining in the United States illegally. So there was that happening. At the same time, and this is the thing that got all the headlines, of course, is that you saw, the United States was one of the most open countries in the world, accepting asylees and refugees who were trying to escape violence and conflict in their own countries. But kind of at the same time, you saw people crossing the border, in many cases illegally, from all over the world. And they were mostly economic migrants trying to come into the United States to gain wealth for their families, to improve their economic conditions. And so what that ended up doing was putting a real strain on our borders, on our immigration systems, and affecting national security, and affecting the security, in some cases, of our local communities, and putting a strain on our domestic social services. So it really was important for us at this time to try and get a handle on that, and begin to put some structures in place that we could control our immigration practices. The partial restriction on Tanzania is under constant review. And it's something on which I am engaging. Your government is definitely advocating on behalf of your people. And we are engaging quite often, talking about it and trying to address those vulnerabilities that led to the partial ban. And to reduce the Tanzanian overstays in the United States. So it's something that we continue to work on. I do think as long as it is there, of course, it's going to affect some of that. Of course.
Yes.
I mean, of course.
Just to add, and I think it's a crucial area to look at, given that now we're trying to revive our relationships with these big investments in Tanzania. Maybe for them not to take so long in completing the deal, because it's at the labor market. We do not have access to acquire the skills or the technical know-how that we need from the States, because we cannot travel to the country. At the same time, we need those skills for us to be able to work in those investments that are coming to this country. And we need those skills. So how can we create those success stories? That's why it's also quite crucial for that human capital, the investment that comes within these trade relations, to invest in the human capital here, because I need those skills to be able to work. I cannot travel to the States.
I have to say, I think that's the exact answer I was going to give, is there's a lot of stuff we need to work on. I think first, let's try and get deals done that are ready to get done. Let's break down some of those barriers, bring the investors and the companies here to Tanzania. Let them start investing in the workforce, in skill training, in local communities, and do a lot of that work here. At the same time, we've got to be doing the work to address those vulnerabilities in the immigration system that led to that partial ban. We've got to do that good work. And so, if we can do that and we can get to a place where we feel, the United States feels comfortable that we've got an understanding of the controls in place and the measures that the government is taking here, again, as part of resetting the bilateral relationship, then I think hopefully those bans can start easing, and then it's the flow that you're talking about. So I think it doesn't mean that skill building isn't happening. That can happen, and it can happen here in Tanzania, and in fact it already is. And I have to say too, we focus on the visa ban as if that's the only thing that matters, and it's important. I definitely understand it's important. Yes. But we've got, through the years, we've invested in these exchange programs like IVLP and Nelson Mandela and Fulbright and the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs and others. We've got a cadre of 7,500 or so alumni that are living and working in powerful positions here in Tanzania. And I think part of what our strategy is now, and I'd love to work with you guys on it and other people too, is how do we use that, leverage that incredible asset that we've created together of this skill base, this power base of amazing individuals who have trained and studied in the United States of America, and now we're here in very important jobs. I think that's one of the things that, let's focus on leveraging that and working that and using that platform and foundation to be able to do the skill building that you're talking about, to be able to help other young people begin to build their businesses and get to the same level of success as our alumni have. We, like some of the other foreign missions here, have started a youth advisory board. So we've got as a mission an incredible group of young people. I mean, they're just amazing when you talk to them, who are advising me on U.S. policy and how to engage with the Tanzanian people. They are helping to create and identify opportunities where we can expand our bilateral relationship and what it means to communities and individuals throughout this country. It's opportunities like this that we have that we should continue to work on and build on while we take care of these other things at the same time.
We've seen a lot of cooperation between the U.S. and Tanzania in the area of military exercises and operations. Last year there was a number of them, and I expect that this year there'll be more as well to come. Right. At a time when the relations between Tanzania are being reviewed. So what final message do you have on that, on the bilateral relations between Tanzania and the U.S. as well? Yeah,
the important thing to know is the review. Let's just focus on the part of the question there. A review doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I mean, I think at the point when we issued that statement in early December, that was a necessary intervention. It was a necessary intervention because, quite frankly, the events around the election were quite shocking. And so it was important, and that raised questions in Washington whether or not Tanzania was and continued to be that bastion of stability and security that it historically always had been. So it raised questions in Washington. And at the same time, it's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. the problems of a level playing field for U.S. companies and investors, of access to the market, those issues were just festering. They'd been around. They weren't new issues. They were old issues. And so I think having that intervention, saying, hey, wait a second, something has changed here. We need to take a moment right now to address these problems. And we've got to fix and reset this bilateral relationship around these values of shared prosperity and security. So I think, again, this was an opportunity for truth-telling between partners who have had a great relationship. How do we move forward? How do we strengthen what we've got? How do we build on the foundation, but put it on a new path? A new path, again, of fairness, reciprocity, of these shared values of prosperity and security. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I think it can be a very positive thing, and that's why we're engaging, and I'm spending personally so much time invested in this review and trying to get to the backside of it. Now, it is absolutely logical that at that same time we continue with to advance some of the core elements of what has made our relationship so strong historically and over the years. And part of that is our security partnership. And I'm really proud, and Yvonne, we talked about it last year, I feel like the security partnership is a place where you see in action principles of reciprocity, fairness, and mutual benefit. That our soldiers come here and join in joint exercises with members of the Tanzania People's Defense Force, and they learn from the TPDF as much as the TPDF is learning from them. And we are building our joint capacity and skills to be able to confront terror and hopefully, confront the kinds of threats that Tanzania is seeing. So, yeah, we're going to have our next Justified Accord. It'll be Justified Accord 2026. That's coming up in March. I think it's going to be bigger and better than ever. I'm excited. I'll be going up to the training facility and hopefully being there for the last day. I hope that we can increase the level of senior level engagement between members of our military to really deepen that bond. And then I'm also really happy to say here, and it was something we talked about last year, that finally we're on the cusp of concluding a state partnership program that's really going to bring our relationship even deeper with an element of the U.S. Army. The Nebraska National Guard is going to be here as the TPDF's core partner in helping to advance our overall military relationship. So it's good news on the security front.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking part in this interview with us,
yes.
Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we've come to the end of our interview with the acting U.S. Ambassador in Tanzania, Andrew Lentz. I was with Lydia Igarabuza from East Africa TV and Radio.
Thank you.
And my name is Yvonne Msimba saying goodbye.
Jumatatu katika aibu yako hata wewe. Fuatilia vyombo vya moto vikivunja sheria na kanuni za usalama barabarani kwa kuendesha vyombo vyao kwa uzembe mkubwa mpaka kufikia kuishiwa mafuta njiani na wengine tena wakiwa kwenye barabara kuu. Dereva wa lori, unaishiwaje mafuta? Na mbaya zaidi, mnamimina kutokea kwenye dumu na tenki liko upande ambapo magari mengine yanapita. Dereva wa boda, mafuta na kuishia, unalazimika kuyachungulia kwanza kupitia mfuniko wa tenki, halafu unaanza kupuliza. Ili iweje? Dereva wa Scania, nawe umeishiwa pia, umenunua kwenye dumu, ila mnachota na kumimina kwa kutumia kachupa kamaji, na huyu pia anawatesa tu wenzake juani wakikusukuma wewe na gari lako. Je, kipimo cha gari kujua akiba ya mafuta iliyopo akifanyi kazi? Huu ni uzembe tu. Ni sana usiku hapa ITV pekee. Kipindi hiki pia kinapatikana kwenye mitandao yetu ya kijamii ya YouTube na Instagram @ITV Tanzania. Usikose. Aibu yako hata wewe.